You know, in professional wrestling, trust is the most dangerous currency you can spend. Because the moment you hand it to someone, the moment you look them in the eyes and say, "I've got your back," you have just handed them the perfect weapon to destroy you with. And nobody in WWE history has ever used that weapon with more precision, more cold-blooded calculation, and more devastating effect than the Queen herself, Charlotte Flair. But here's what makes this story different. Here's what makes this moment hit different from every other betrayal in recent memory. Because this time, the person on the receiving end of Charlotte's ruthless ambition wasn't a rival, wasn't an enemy, wasn't someone who had been talking trash or threatening her crown. No, the person Charlotte Flair just drove a knife straight into the back of was Alexa Bliss, one of the most beloved, most charismatic, most emotionally powerful women on the entire WWE roster. A woman who had been through absolute hell personally, professionally, emotionally, and had fought her way back to the light. And Charlotte Flair looked at all of that. She saw Alexa's vulnerability. She saw her resilience. She saw the entire WWE Universe rallying behind this woman like a shield of love and passion. And Charlotte Flair smiled. Because Charlotte Flair doesn't see shields, she sees targets. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. I'm your host, and today we are breaking down one of the most jaw-dropping, stomach-dropping, pulse-pounding moments in recent WWE history. Charlotte Flair has turned on Alexa Bliss, and the wrestling world has not stopped talking about it since. So buckle up, because we are going deep into this story: the build, the betrayal, the fallout, and what this means for the future of both women. This is Wrestling Impact, and this is the moment that changed everything. Let's go all the way back to where this story really begins, because every great betrayal has a foundation, a carefully constructed illusion of alliance that makes the moment of destruction so much more catastrophic. Charlotte and Alexa weren't enemies heading into this. In fact, to the casual viewer, they almost looked like an unlikely but functional partnership. Two women from completely different worlds: Charlotte, the blue-blooded daughter of a legend, draped in robes and royalty, carrying herself like she was born to stand above every woman who dared share a ring with her. And Alexa, chaotic, unpredictable, magnetic, a woman who had reinvented herself so many times that fans never quite knew which version of Little Miss Bliss they were going to get, and that made them love her even more. There was a period where these two occupied the same space without conflict. They weren't allies in any official capacity, but there was a mutual acknowledgement of professional courtesy, if you will. Charlotte was locked in her own wars, her own championship pursuits, her own obsessive drive to cement her legacy as the greatest women's wrestler of all time. And Alexa was on her own journey, rebuilding, reconnecting with the crowd, finding her footing after everything she had been through. But in WWE, peaceful coexistence is always temporary. The roster is too competitive, the titles too precious, the spotlight too narrow for two performers of this magnitude to share it without eventually colliding. And the question was never if they would collide, it was when, and more importantly, how. What nobody expected was that Charlotte would make the first move, and that she would make it look so beautiful, so genuine, so utterly convincing before she detonated the entire thing. See, Charlotte began positioning herself as someone who respected Alexa. Not warmly, Charlotte Flair doesn't do warm, but there was an acknowledgement, almost regal in its delivery, that Alexa Bliss was a worthy presence in the women's division. Charlotte would nod in her direction backstage. There was a segment where Charlotte actually complimented Alexa's resilience during a promo, and the way she delivered it, you almost believed every single word. That's the terrifying thing about Charlotte Flair. She is so good, so polished, so in command of every micro-expression and vocal inflection, that even when she's laying the groundwork for betrayal, she sounds like she's delivering a sincere speech at an award ceremony. Alexa, for her part, was cautious. She's been in this business long enough, been burned enough times, to know that trust is earned slowly and lost instantly. But there's something about Alexa Bliss that her character has always carried underneath all the chaos and attitude, and that's a genuine desire for connection, for belonging. She projects this fierce independence, this untouchable confidence, but the most compelling version of Alexa Bliss has always been the one that lets you see the cracks, the one that wants someone in her corner. And Charlotte, calculating as ever, saw that. She read Alexa like a book and decided to be exactly what Alexa needed until the moment it no longer served her. The build to the betrayal was masterful in its subtlety. There were moments where Charlotte had opportunities to shine at Alexa's expense and chose not to, or appeared to choose not to. A tag team situation where Charlotte could have tagged herself in and stolen the spotlight, but instead let Alexa close it out and take the victory. The crowd cheered. Alexa looked surprised, then grateful. Charlotte smiled that composed, queenly smile that you can never quite read. Was it genuine? Was it strategy? Was it both? That's the beauty of Charlotte Flair as a performer. The ambiguity is the weapon. And then came the moment. The moment that has since been watched, rewatched, clipped, posted, and discussed across every wrestling forum and social media platform imaginable. The moment Charlotte Flair revealed exactly who she is and exactly what she's always been. The setup was this: Alexa was in a position of vulnerability. Not weakness, because Alexa Bliss does not do weakness. But she was exposed. She had put herself on the line in a way that required someone in her corner. And Charlotte was there. Right there. Ringside. Looking every inch the loyal partner, the powerful ally, the queen standing guard. And then Alexa hit her finishing sequence. The crowd was electric, that specific electricity you only get when a beloved performer is about to get a moment the audience has been hungry for. The energy in that arena was building like a wave about to crash, and every single person watching had the same thought: this is it. This is Alexa's moment. And Charlotte is here to witness it. Except Charlotte reached into the ring. And instead of support, instead of the hand extended in solidarity, she grabbed Alexa by the hair and yanked her down. Hard. Violently. With the kind of force that communicated not just betrayal but contempt. Like Alexa had been an accessory all along. A pawn. A stepping stone wrapped up in a partnership. The arena went silent for one full, suspended second. That silence that wrestling fans know, that silence that precedes the explosion. And then it hit. The boos rained down. Not the energized heat of a heel who the crowd loves to hate, but the genuine, visceral, wounded boos of a fanbase that had been caught off guard. That had believed, even briefly, that this time might be different. That Charlotte might actually be the ally she appeared to be. And Charlotte stood there in that silence, taking it in, absorbing every decibel of that hatred like it was oxygen. She didn't hide from it. She didn't flinch. She raised her chin, adjusted her robe, because of course she was wearing a robe. The queen always wears her robe, and she looked down at Alexa with an expression that was somehow worse than anger. It wasn't rage. It was indifference. Cold, royal, calculated indifference. As if Alexa Bliss had simply been a variable in an equation, and the equation was now solved. She leaned down, and here's the moment that people won't stop talking about. She leaned down close to Alexa, close enough that it almost looked intimate, and she said, just loud enough for the ringside cameras to catch it, "Did you really think I needed you?" 5 words. 5 words that immediately became the most discussed line in wrestling conversation for the week. Because that's the thing about Charlotte Flair at her absolute best as a villain: she doesn't just beat you. She makes you feel foolish for ever believing in her. She doesn't just win the exchange. She retroactively rewrites the entire relationship, making you wonder if any of it was ever real, if any of her warmth or acknowledgement meant anything, or if it was all just scaffolding she built so she could burn it down more dramatically. Alexa's reaction in that moment was everything. Because Alexa Bliss is a performer who understands that the most powerful acting isn't the big gesture, it's the small one. She didn't scream. She didn't immediately leap up and start throwing punches. She looked up at Charlotte, and there was this flicker, just a flicker of something that looked like hurt. Real hurt. Not character hurt, but the kind of emotional response that the best wrestlers can access because they understand the human truth underneath the storyline. And the crowd felt it. The crowd felt it in their chests. And then Alexa's expression shifted. The hurt hardened. It crystallized into something sharper, something colder, something that told every single person watching that Charlotte Flair had just made the most expensive mistake of her career. Not because Alexa Bliss is the most physically dominant force in the women's division, she's not, and she'd probably be the first one to tell you that. But because Alexa Bliss, when she is truly motivated, when she has been genuinely wronged, when she has that specific kind of fire burning in her, she becomes something different. She becomes the version of herself that has beaten world champions, that has held multiple titles, that has survived every attempt to bury her or diminish her or push her aside. She becomes the reason her fans never give up on her even when the booking doesn't make it easy. She becomes dangerous. And Charlotte Flair just lit that fire. Personally, deliberately, and perhaps most recklessly publicly. Now let's talk about what this means going forward, because this betrayal isn't just a dramatic moment frozen in time. It's a launching pad for what could be one of the most compelling women's feuds we've seen in a long time. And the reason it has so much potential isn't just because both women are incredibly talented, it's because of what they represent to each other thematically. Charlotte Flair represents inevitability, legacy, The crushing, relentless weight of being the best and knowing it and making sure everyone else knows it too. She represents the argument that excellence justifies everything, that if you're good enough, if you win enough, then the methods don't matter and the collateral damage is just the cost of greatness. Charlotte believes, at the deepest level of her character, that she owes no one anything except a championship-level performance. Alliances, friendships, loyalties, these are conveniences. And when they stop being convenient, they stop existing. Alexa Bliss represents something different. She represents resilience over pedigree. She represents the person who was never supposed to be here, who was never handed anything, who has had to fight not just opponents but circumstances and doubt and the weight of her own complicated journey just to stand in that ring. She represents the fans who root for the person who keeps getting back up. And right now, Charlotte Flair has knocked her down in the most personal, most public, most deliberately humiliating way possible. This feud writes itself. And the best feuds in wrestling aren't just about championship titles or physical competition, they're about ideas in conflict. Charlotte's idea that greatness supersedes everything versus Alexa's idea that who you are matters as much as what you win. The queen versus the survivor. Inevitability versus resilience. Cold royalty versus fierce, beating, imperfect humanity. The matches between these two are going to be appointment television. Because technically, Charlotte is elite, her in-ring work is as sharp as anyone in the company, her ability to tell a story over the course of a match is extraordinary, and her instinct for making big moments land is almost unparalleled. But Alexa is no slouch. She is one of the most creative in-ring performers in the women's division, someone who understands pacing and psychology deeply, who can work a crowd in a way that very few performers, male or female, can match. Put these two in a main event situation with a proper build, and you have something genuinely special. And let's not underestimate the promo potential. Because oh my goodness, the promo potential. Charlotte on the microphone is already one of the most compelling things in WWE. She can be devastating, she can be regal, she can be funny in the most condescending possible way, and she can make you hate her so thoroughly that you buy every ticket, watch every segment, and click every video just for the chance to see her get what's coming to her. And Alexa on the microphone is electric. She's quick, she's sharp, she can pivot between biting sarcasm and emotional authenticity in a single sentence. The verbal confrontations between these two are going to be absolutely explosive. The WWE Universe is already divided, and that division is fuel. The Charlotte stans, and they exist, are out here arguing that Charlotte did what Charlotte always does. She prioritized her own elevation, her own pursuit of greatness, and she was just being honest about the nature of their relationship. Is it ruthless? Yes. Is it cold? Absolutely. But is it Charlotte? 100%. And there's a segment of the fanbase that genuinely respects the consistency of a heel character who never wavers, who never apologizes, who commits to the bit completely. But the overwhelming response has been firmly in Alexa's corner. The outpouring of support for Alexa Bliss on social media since this went down has been remarkable, and it speaks to the genuine connection this performer has built with the audience over the course of her career. People don't just like Alexa Bliss. They feel protective of her. They feel like her wins are their wins and her losses hurt in a personal way. And Charlotte Flair, the most accomplished woman in WWE history, a 16-time world champion, the daughter of a Hall of Famer, just made Alexa Bliss a sympathetic underdog against her. Which is almost poetic. Because that's the thing about betrayal in wrestling, it doesn't diminish the person who was betrayed. It elevates them. Every time Charlotte puts Alexa down, she's writing the next chapter of Alexa's comeback. Every dismissive comment, every cold look, every reminder of Charlotte's superior title count, all of it is kindling. And when Alexa Bliss eventually gets her hands on Charlotte Flair in a situation where the stakes match the magnitude of this betrayal, it's going to be one of those moments that people talk about for years. Because in wrestling, the best stories don't end with the betrayal. They begin with it. The betrayal is just the inciting incident. It's the match dropped into the pool of gasoline. And right now, the fire is just beginning to catch. Charlotte Flair made a calculated decision. She looked at Alexa Bliss, weighed her value against her own ambitions, and found her wanting. She pulled the trigger cleanly, confidently, and without a single visible moment of hesitation. That's who Charlotte Flair is. That's who she has always been. And in a strange, twisted way, you have to respect the commitment. But Alexa Bliss is still standing. She's standing in that ring, she's looking up at the woman who just stabbed her in the back with a smile on her face, and those eyes, those big, expressive, dangerous eyes, are already planning the response. Because Alexa Bliss doesn't just take shots lying down. She absorbs them. She banks them. She turns pain into fuel with an efficiency that would make Charlotte Flair herself nervous if she were paying close enough attention. And here's the kicker. Here's the thing that Charlotte, in her arrogance, in her royal certainty that she has already won this, might not fully appreciate yet. Alexa Bliss doesn't need to be better than Charlotte Flair to beat her. She doesn't need a better resume or more titles or more years at the top. She just needs one night, one moment, one opportunity where Charlotte's cold calculations leave just enough of a gap for lightning to strike. And knowing Alexa Bliss? Knowing the history of this performer and the energy she carries into every single thing she does? That gap is coming. This story is far from over. In fact, if anything, the most explosive chapters haven't even been written yet. Charlotte Flair has drawn her sword, made her declaration, and told the entire wrestling world exactly where she stands. Now it's Alexa Bliss's turn to answer. And I promise you, speaking as someone who has watched every chapter of Alexa Bliss's career, who has seen her at her lowest and her highest and everything in between, you do not want to miss that answer. So here's what I want you to do right now. If you are as fired up about this story as I am, if this betrayal hit you the way it hit me, if you're already mapping out how this feud plays out and what the matches look like and how this ends, then hit that like button. Hit it like Charlotte Flair hits finishing moves decisively and without hesitation. Drop down in the comments and tell me, whose side are you on? Are you riding with Charlotte's cold, ruthless logic? Or are you in Alexa's corner, waiting for the comeback? I want to read every single one of those comments, so let's get a conversation going. And if you are not yet subscribed to Wrestling Impact, what are you doing? We are here every single week breaking down the biggest moments, the deepest storylines, and the most compelling characters in professional wrestling with the passion and detail that this art form deserves. Subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and make sure you never miss a moment. Because in wrestling, the moments that matter most are always the ones that catch you completely off guard. Just ask Alexa Bliss. This has been Wrestling Impact. I'll see you in the next